How's it going, everyone? So Huion sent me their Kamvas 16 Gen 3 tablet, and I guess we'll be doing an unboxing slash review of it. And here we have the Kamvas 16 Gen 3. This is one of their relatively new tablets. And Huion did send me this one, but as always, I'm just going to give my real opinion on it. And here's the tablet, which we'll be taking a closer look at later on in the video. And then here's all of the extra stuff, like the pen holder, power brick, you get the stand, the cables, the pen. But the first thing, pen holder, as always, inside of the pen holder we have all of the extra nibs, which there's so many of them, and it takes a while to go through even one of them, so you're pretty much good for forever, I think. Then the power brick goes with a USB-A cable, which you also get included. And then here we have the stand, which this is actually a pretty nice stand. It feels really sturdy. It doesn't look very sturdy, but it actually is. And it also has a bunch of different angles that you can put it at, which is nice. And then next up, of course, we have the stylus. So this one only comes with one stylus. This one has 3 different buttons, which I think that's kind of a new thing for Huion. And also has 16K pressure sensitivity levels, of course. And recently they've also been doing things like tilt support, I think. But this tablet comes with 4 cables. We have a USB-C to C cable, which I think you can use that to connect it directly to your PC or laptop without a power cable. Then there's a USB-A to C power cable, there's a power cable extender, and then of course Huion's 3-in-1 cable, which uses HDMI. And here's the actual tablet. This one actually has buttons on the side, which I feel like a lot of other tablets nowadays don't have. And it's also got 2 dials, so if you're somebody who doesn't like using a regular keyboard and prefers to use those, then, you know, that's cool. The USB ports are only on the right side of the tablet, so it might be a little clumsy to set up because of that, but the cables are really long, so I don't think that'll be an issue. But that's it for the unboxing, so let's get to the actual drawing part now. I figured I'm just going to draw some poses because that's probably a bit easier to follow along with if you're trying to draw along with me than it is with coloring, and I also enjoy drawing poses more than coloring, so that's why I decided to do this. But first pose is pretty standard, just a normal standing pose, and of course the first thing that you should always do whenever drawing poses like this is decide where you want the upper and lower borders of the body to be, because that way you can actually draw without slightly going off of the canvas. In this case, I kind of misjudged how big my screen recording was, so I kind of went off the canvas with the top of the head. But deciding where the upper and lower borders are will let you get the proportions right a lot more consistently. And then, of course, on top of that, you should always decide what you want the proportions to be before you actually make the drawing, which is a lot easier to do with regular poses, because with foreshortened poses, there's probably a lot more adjusting you'll have to do while you're drawing the pose. But even in those cases, I think it's still better to decide the proportions beforehand and then just make slight adjustments as you're going along instead of winging the whole thing. By the way, whenever people start doing digital art and they start working with tablets for the first time, I see people ask very often if it's supposed to be really hard using a tablet, because in the beginning, it feels kind of unnatural, regardless of whether you're using a display tablet or a regular pen tablet, you know, the one that doesn't have a screen. I think it's a lot harder to get used to the one that doesn't have a screen, but if you're somebody who's used to drawing in traditional, even using a tablet that has a screen is going to take a very long time to adjust to. The biggest reason why is probably because of the friction, because of course you're drawing on glass, so there's going to be practically no friction compared to paper, meaning you have to get used to sliding all over the screen. And then there's also a lot of other small things, like for example, the pencil nib or the pen nib is a lot thicker than a pencil tip, meaning it's slightly more difficult to be precise. And then sometimes you're also dealing with the stroke lagging behind a little bit, because of course it's not like real life where you draw a stroke and the graphite immediately follows where the pencil tip went. The reason why I bring this up is because if you're somebody that's still struggling with adjusting to digital, it might also be that it's because your tablet is still new. When these tablets are brand new, they're a lot more slippery than after you've been using them for a couple months. Because I've been drawing in digital for a couple years at this point, so I have a decent amount of experience using these tablets, and even I was kind of struggling to control my lines with this new tablet, and you can probably tell based on how scratchy some of these lines are. Main reason being, it's just a new tablet, so it takes a little bit of time to adjust to how the actual tablet works. It takes time to adjust to how the pen feels, how it works on top of the screen, and then you also need to like work the tablet in by just drawing constantly. So if you're still struggling with digital and getting used to it, the only thing that I would recommend is just use the tablet more. Like, you don't even have to use it for drawing, but just use it in general. Like, if you're browsing the internet, just use the tablet instead of your mouse. Or I mean, if you can, if there's like a game that you can play on the tablet, then, you know, do that on the tablet instead of using a mouse. Now, as for the actual Kamvas 16 itself, the user experience was pretty smooth. Didn't have any issues getting it all set up outside of Windows Ink being stupid. Once again, I'm sure you guys have had your own issues with Windows Ink. But the tablet itself was great, 2.5K resolution, it was really responsive, of course 16K pressure sensitivity levels, which didn't really come into play during this drawing session because I'm not using pen pressure. Colors also look extremely vibrant. I'm not exactly a coloring guy, but you can't really go wrong with these modern tablets when it comes to the color. Now, Huion also has a Kamvas Pro 16, and this is the 16 Gen 3. I'm not entirely sure what the difference is between these, because there is like $100 difference with the Pro being more expensive. I think the difference might just be in build quality, where the Pro is more portable versus this one. It's not like this one isn't portable, because you know, it's still super light. It's really thin as well, so you can carry it with you wherever you want. And then the USB-C can be used to make it portable. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the difference is, even though I did do a review on the Pro 16 as well. But from my experience, they feel more or less the same. So if you want to get one, then this is also a pretty good option. Here we're going into cleaning up the sketch a little bit, just to see what the accuracy of the pen is like in finer detail, I guess. And yeah, even with this, it was perfectly fine. This also reminds me, you may have heard about the thing where you should stay zoomed out while you're drawing. And that is pretty much what I did when I was drawing the poses. I'm pretty sure I stayed zoomed out the whole time until I captured the whole pose with all of its proportions. And then now that I'm adding the smaller details, that's when you can zoom in. As soon as you've captured the overall proportions and you know how big a thing needs to be, that's when you can zoom in and you can actually draw stuff correctly without making a mistake. Although I did make a mistake with the hands here. I made them a little bit too small, which that is like, again, kind of the issue with zooming in. If you're zooming in too much, then it's kind of hard to get everything to or to give everything the right proportions. So when you're drawing these poses, stay zoomed out until you've captured the proportions of all of the major details, and then you can zoom in and add all of the smaller ones. That's kind of another limitation with tablets versus paper, because on paper, you kind of never need to zoom in because you always have enough screen space, I guess, to work with. Whereas on tablets, there's not that much real estate. That's why it's usually a good idea to get a bigger tablet, because it just gives you more screen space to work with, and it means you don't have to zoom in as much. But of course, that does have a limit, because I think the 27-inch tablets are just a little bit too big. And I think a 16-inch tablet, just like this one, is probably the minimum size that you want to work with. I think the 13-inch ones are just a little bit too small. But that's it for the video. If you're interested in checking out the Kamvas 16, I've got some links for that in the description. And then, of course, in the description, we also have a Patreon, YouTube memberships, and Discord link. So be sure to check those out as well. And then I guess I will catch you all in the next video.